I'd have to look at the history books, but I don't think we've seen that sort of a repeated nature of a 1-2 finish amongst rivals for so many consecutive seasons.
Over those 53 years, I've seen odds-on favourites beaten very, very often at some stage or other. Not least Eddie Merckx, of course. Well, welcome everybody. A very special edition of Beyond the Podium today, of course, because we're going to preview the upcoming Tour de France, which is days away from starting in Lille in northern France. Well, I'm Phil Liggett, of course, and one question I'm about to ask Brent Bookwalter is, Brent, can anybody beat Tadej Pogacar?
Oh, Phil, that is the question of the hour. It's Tour de France time. And I'm psyched. Even before thinking about Tadej, I'm just feeling this Tour de France, this buzz, this pre-race buzz, almost like not as anticipated as when I was racing the Tour, but still get a lot of excitement just to have all the squads unveiled and realize all the riders who are getting selected to the rosters, the big fight even within the teams they've had to get selected. But yeah, absolutely. The headline is, can anyone beat Tadej? But Phil, before we get into that, I want to know, I think you said this is the 53rd Tour de France for you, which I got to think that's more tours than almost anyone else even involved with the race. So in that position, tell us how you feel heading back into another tour for you.
Looking forward to it immensely, because we're going to see a cracking race. We're going to talk about the routes and the riders, of course. And you're right, Pogacar will go in as odds-on favourite to win, but you know, over those 53 years, I've seen odds-on favourites beaten very, very often at some stage or other. Not least Eddie Merckx, of course, who was trying to win his 6th Tour de France. He was beaten by Bernard Thévenet on the Champs-Élysées. And guess what? This year, we're celebrating 50 years of finishing the race on the Champs-Élysées. Take out the exception of last year because of the Olympic Games. So, no, I'm up and ready and looking forward to it. So, and like I've always said to people who say to you, why do you go and watch the same race every year? And the answer is, of course, Brent, you don't see the same race every year, do you? Now, first question I've got for you, Brent. You've ridden the Tour 4 times. I think you're rather lucky, aren't you? You never came up a rider like Tadej Pogacar in your career. Think how boring it would have been chasing his wheel. But what makes the Tour de France particularly intriguing or different this year, do you think?
Yeah, Phil, I think as always with the Tour de France, you know, it goes without saying, it is the marquee event of the cycling season. It transcends cycling to sport and to culture. So it's always the best of the best. That's what I remember about racing the Tour, was the pleasure of being involved with the true A team, not just with my particular team, but knowing every squad there, from manager to mechanic to soigneur to rider. They're bringing their best. And yeah, this year, gosh, if anyone's going to beat Tadej Pogacar, his main rival Jonas Vingegaard, in with a chance for sure. But yeah, is really going to have to bring his best. And I think for me, that's what really makes this year unique. Is just another ratcheting up and another level of this rivalry, this Jonas Vingegaard Tadej Pogacar rivalry. Looking back the past 4 seasons and seeing this 1-2, 1-2, 1-2. I'd have to look at the history books, but I don't think we've seen that sort of a repeated nature of a 1-2 finish amongst rivals for so many consecutive seasons. And yeah, this year we've known Jonas Vingegaard is going to be there, which I think is what makes the Tour really exciting this year. You know, last year at this time, we were still kind of holding our breaths, hoping Jonas would be back even just in the race to start. This year, he hasn't had a flawless lead up, but he's looking really good. Way, way, way better than last year. And, you know, we spoke to his team, Grisha Nierman, his sport director, recently. They believe he's really in it with a shot. They're not holding out for a prayer. They're not holding out for a miracle. They have a plan, and they really believe in him. And that return of this rivalry, Jonas Vingegaard, Tadej Pogacar, that's what I'm so excited for.
Yeah, 11 wins already. Virtually every race he started, he won, or he's been very close. He was 3rd in Milan-San Remo, which I wouldn't think he'd be too pleased about that. And in your years that you did ride, you rode the Tour 4 times?
That's right.
Yeah. Did you have any rivalries even lower down the classification with people that you wanted to get to grips with?
You know, all my experiences at the Tour de France were always me getting in line with my team leaders. Um, yeah, I was in a bit of a generational shift in my time doing the Tour de France. There weren't really these dominant rivalries. We won the Tour in Cadel in 2011 with Cadel Evans. Uh, but it wasn't like when we went in with Cadel, we were looking at one rider that he had to beat. It really was quite an even matchup. But that said, I don't think he would have been the favorite on paper. So I think what you said, Phil, about it is the Tour. You know, we've seen favorites crumble. If anyone's seen it, it's you over 53 years, and it still is going to keep us guessing. We have this really intense sort of old school lead out to the race. The first 10 days, really unpredictable racing. All the directors are talking about how nervous they are going to be, how much really even the best riders in the world are sort of holding their breath and clenching their teeth for these first 10 days. So yeah, it'll still be unpredictable as ever.
Totally agree. And I personally am going to go through the Tour route shortly. I love this route. I love it. It's a race of two halves for sure as we journey to the mountains. The last week's a cracker. We'll talk about that in the moment. But the buzz, I think, all started during the Dauphiné, when the big riders who we're going to talk about in the Tour de France really hit out at each other. Pogacar showed them all. He won the race. And history shows if you win the Dauphiné, you tend to go on and win the Tour de France. But Jonas Vingegaard, I thought, also gave his best shot and he came short. But for me, that's a good sign. I don't know what you think, but they always say, like with your weight, go into the Tour de France a little few pounds over your race weight because you'll lose a lot in the first week of the Tour. So I think that we go into the Tour to his very best.
Yeah, I agree, Phil. I think looking back to the Dauphiné and all the buzz and hype that was created from the Dauphiné, that was a unique race. We had, you know, three of the Tour de France podium contenders in Tadej Pogacar, Jonas Vingegaard, Remco Evenepoel, all lining up and squaring off against each other. That's rare we have that. A lot of times one rider will go to Swiss, one rider will go to the Dauphiné. Tadej has traditionally done Tour of Slovenia before the Tour de France. So to get this head-to-head matchup, you know, I applaud these guys even for, you know, even showing themselves and any potential vulnerability, any potential strengths. Like it already came out a lot, and it was at the end of the day very dominant today. Pogacar, I think the 1 minute time gap that he had to Jonas Vingegaard at the end doesn't even fully show his dominance. But we have to remember that he did not win that time trial, and in fact, he wasn't even second in the time trial. So that does paint a little bit of mystique, a little bit of unknown into Tadej Pogacar's preparation. And Jonas Vingegaard, he is on the up. Like we said, he's so much better off. He's in such a better position than he was last year at this time. And yeah, this year has not been without drama. It's not been easy sailing. It hasn't been nearly as dominant as Tadej Pogacar's season and lead up to the Tour, but he's looking really good. And as we saw, the two recent times over recent years when Jonas Vingegaard did win the Tour de France, you know, he won it with obviously world-class climbing talent, but they also won it with this team, these united, strategic, real, concise, and sometimes even elaborate team efforts, which really did well to eventually just dismantle and pull Tadej Pogacar apart. And that's what they'll be looking to do this year. And going back to that two parts of that race, it's really heavy climbing stacked up at the end. And they even go over the Col de la Loze, where we have that famous Tadej Pogacar quote of, you know, I'm gone, I'm dead, when Vingegaard and his team just took him apart.
That was about 4 years ago. No, 2 years ago, I think it was. 2 years ago. But I'll tell you what, that climb is in, and it is the high point of the race this year. They've only finished on the top of it once before. Angel Martinez was the winner that time. They call it the Col de la Loze Courchevel, but we don't go any further. We're at the top of the Col de la Loze, and that's where it stops on this occasion. As I say, I'm getting ahead of myself now talking about the route, but that could decide the whole Tour de France, that's for sure. Just to briefly look at the day of the Dauphiné, the very first stage I turned the television on, I was in the last 5 kilometers, I think it was. 3 riders on a day that should not have been 3 riders in the lead. And who were they? Jonas Vingegaard, Tadej Pogacar, Remco Evenepoel. no one else in sight. I thought, what on earth? I must have made a mistake here. They're doing a replay of some other event. Right from the gun, they just hit at each other as if there's nobody else taking part in the Dauphiné. And they are going to be, as we move on, they are going to be three of our big four contenders to win this Tour de France this year, I feel. And all three riders have personalities. All three riders are wonderfully, naturally talented. And all three riders are friendly to each other, and yet all they want to do is each other. And I think it's made a very unique a trio of riders in this year's Tour de France. The one, of course, is on the outside of these three, and as the wise head that might alter the situation is Primož Roglič. And I think he owes the Tour a victory at some stage of his career. But those four guys on the podium, will there be any intruders this year?
Well, Phil, it's hard to see. I think just similar to last year, those are our big four. Oftentimes it's a big three or even two. And I do think it is quite clear, make no mistake, the Tour de France for the victory is about Jonas, Vingegaard, Tadej Pogacar. But, just outside them, just sort of next to them, little underneath them, are Remco Evenepoel, Primož Roglič. And what I love about Remco Evenepoel and Primož Roglič in particular together is they are really at polar ends of their career. Primož Roglič is very much the veteran who's been so close to Tour de France victory before, had it snatched away from his fingertips, the final moments of the race from Tadej Pogacar when Tadej got his maiden Tour de France win. But he's been so close before. He won the Vuelta a España last year, so very much still in the game. We can't forget, Primo's made a big career move, big transition, moving over to Red Bull Bora-Hansgrohe recently. And those transitions cannot be underestimated, especially for a veteran rider who's quite set in his ways. So Primo's very much the story of the veteran, and definitely for me, like a sentimental favorite. As someone I was still racing in the pro peloton at 37 years old. I look at Primo's, he's still in there fighting with the world's best, and just so much respect for him. Would love to see him break into that podium group. And then obviously Remco on the other end of the spectrum, who I don't think any of us know how many years we're going to be treated to the treat of Remco Evenepoel fighting for GC at the Tour last year, just getting started and coming out with an impressive debut. And his strengths are so clear. Reigning world time trial champion, he showed that at the Dauphiné, and it's really exciting for Remco Evenepoel in this year's Tour de France with that time trial so early, stage 4. We could potentially see one of our GC favorites in Remco Evenepoel, with the yellow jersey even in the first week, which could really spin things up. And hey, like a young guy like Remco, you give him that little bit of a boost, give him a little bit of confidence with his specialty so earlier in the race, and it'll be exciting to see what him and his team can do with that.
I think what you're saying is absolutely right. Remco won't be settled this year with third place because he wants to claim a top two. To claim a top two, he's got to knock out the two guys who've been either first or second in the Tour de France for 5 years. And yet he's got the confidence the way he talks that he can do it. Primož Roglič, is not on his side, but he's a very skillful tactical man. And I think the routes could bring the best out of him. Of course, his biggest problem is Primož Roglič crashes a lot. Whether it's his fault or not, he still falls off a lot. And as you know, that cost him the Tour last year with his multiple crashes towards the end. It's not always he just seems to be in the wrong place. A traffic island or something, the rider falls in front of him. He's the victim at the other end of the crash. And it's I would love Primož to become a real challenger again. And I believe he can. Roglič and Pogacar are absolutely sporting heroes in their country. They're both Slovenian, and they've got poster stamps with their faces on, all that comes with stardom. They're the greatest sports people that they've ever had in Slovenia, and the crowd won't know again who to choose to cheer. Pogacar's been up in the mountains training as we speak. As far as I know, he's still there. He's signing books, by the way, Brent. Because I did a little job for him in November last year. I wrote the foreword to his new book, which has just come out, called The Triple Crown, and it's now on sale. And he sent me a copy and a picture of him signing the book. And so I'm really pretty pleased with him. Oh, magic of television.
Look at that.
We can't quite read it, but he said to me, "Thank you for your voice, Phil." And I was very flattered because this guy, oh, boy, our TV producer's on fire today. That's fantastic. And so I'm hoping the book is pretty expensive to buy, but I will occasionally tweet get it because Tadej has a foundation to help other people, and every penny of the money he takes for the sale of that book will go to his foundation. So he's a good man at heart, that's for sure. Didn't look too tired there, and that was at his training camp about 4 days ago, Brent. So I think we haven't seen too much. So what do you think about Roglic's crashes, Brent? We've seen it, and I've seen him tracking yellow in the Dauphiné and lose the race on the last day and so on.
Yeah, Phil, good. First, I love the throw to Tadej there in the book, and I love that game recognizes game, and that he appreciates you and your role and being the voice of the tour. So I love that. I love champions respecting other champions like yourself, Phil. But yeah, back to Primos. I think one of the things we learned this week, actually, we're really fortunate. At this team here, we get to speak with a bunch of the directors before the race starts, get a little bit of inside, and this Primož Roglič, this reality of him being up against it and just staying on his bike. It's evident to see that as American fans who maybe don't watch the tour or other races other than the tour all year, they turn on the tour, see Roglič on the ground. What is it with this guy? One of the things we learned was that growing up as a ski jumper, a Nordic ski jumper, that his decision and reaction ability was actually sort of honed and refined in this very unique way that most pro cyclists don't develop as. And a bit of the Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe management's assessment of this was that he decides very late, probably later in making decisions in those crux moments than some other riders. And that can mean the difference, in a race like the Tour de France, when we're, elbow to elbow and knuckles up against seat posts and just bumping, that tiny little bit of a later decision, late braking or harder braking can meet the end. But it was really interesting to me that the director team there and the management had kind of suss this out. They're watching these crashes on slow-mo, they're analyzing them, looking for solutions, and I'm really excited to see Primož go back to the tour and hopefully stay safe. Let's keep him on his bike, and we want all four of these guys into those final couple weeks just battling in the mountains. But I gotta say, I don't want to be a pessimist, Phil, but I don't see it happening. I hate to say it, and I hope I'm wrong, but these first 10 days, without any big summit finishes, without any big shakeups like we had last year in the GC, sprinters fighting for the yellow jersey. This is a scenario where we're likely going to see some dramatic crashes, and I hope we don't lose a GC guy, but this is a very realistic reality.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more there, Brent. Let's talk about the one of the guy though, Jonas Vingegaard. He's either second or he wins. He needs to win now to go 3-3 with Tadej. It's a possibility. He's going to come in, I think, slightly under par, but he's got the best team for him. The best team in the race is Visma-Lease, and we saw the brilliant tactics which won them the Giro d'Italia with Simon Yates, with Wout van Aert up the road. He's a champion in his own right, Wout van Aert, or he's the best domestique in the world. And he got up the road, and when Simon Yates finally reached him, he buried himself. He won the Tour in one day, pacing Simon Yates to the victory on that day. It was wonderful sort of Giro d'Italia. Now, the team pretty much you've got Simon Yates here. His job is clearly defined. Get Vingegaard across the finish line in pattern yellow. The same applies to Wout van Aert, who will still go looking for his own stage wins. But the tactics now, I think it's only good to take this race away from Tadej Pogacar. And the other teams are going to have the same thoughts, I think. So we could see a bit of a gang-up on Tadej's team and Tadej himself during this race.
Yeah, Phil, absolutely. This dynamic of UAE being the super team they are, you know, they obviously they race with respect. They do race with class and respect, but they have given no gifts to anyone. And yeah, they still have that star-studded super team capability on paper. You know, when you say best team in the race, oh, I don't know. Like I put Visma Lease Bike and UAE, I put them like pretty much on even. But yeah, I will say, like from a tactical, strategic preparation, team unity execution standpoint, Visma Lease Bike looks really good. And you know, they have two Grand Tour winners, recent Grand Tour winners, in Sepp Kuss and Simon Yates in the mix with Superman Wout van Aert. It's hard to deny that combination. If they can get all those guys to the later phases of the race, in a similar situation when Jonas won and put in all the time on Pogacar over Col de Granon a few years ago, or more recently to Courchevel over Col de Lolos, if they can get into that situation with all their resources, the super team still intact, I think that's going to be their play, and that's where they're going to pour it on. But I mean, make no mistake, UAE's team is also no slouch. This squad is stacked with other riders like João Almeida, who could also lead a Grand Tour in his own right. Adam Yates, who's been on the podium of the Tour de France himself, Simon Yates' brother. So just such stacked teams. And I think for all the Vingegaard-Pogacar rivalries over the recent years, it hasn't always been this evenly matched with the teams. I think last year we were looking at the UAE team and just saying, you know, we're talking like, whoa, we got to do some salary caps or something. Holy smokes, they bought some firepower. But this year, I think more than ever, it's really evenly matched. And knowing that Vingegaard's coming in with a cleaner, smoother run-in with that team factor combined is another reason it makes it really exciting.
Well, they're the primary contenders, but there are others, as you say. Things go wrong in a 3,500 kilometer race, so 21 days, and sometimes you can't recover from the problems. And so these big teams have people who can step into the shoe ball by the racer. And I mentioned one just now, João Almeida. This guy wants a podium finish. And he has the ability to go with him for much of the route. So he might be dragging himself at the same time into a podium situation because you can add it. Brian João would like to finish at best third or fourth, but worst, rather, third or fourth.
Phil, I gotta apologize for your internet for you. You're already living Viva la France of the internet challenges of the tour. You're breaking up a little bit there. Coming through. But I think I think we're talking some of the outsiders who could surprise, and yes. You know, João Almeida definitely in the mix. Just won Tour de Suisse. You know, also Matteo Jorgensen. You know, let's be honest. I'm American. I'm a fan of all the Americans. And Matteo Jorgensen, you know, he is continuing to show that he has risen to this level of being world class. Definitely super domestique. I think, you know, talking to Visma Lease Bike management like we did a week or two ago, it's pretty clear that Matteo, they have not pegged him to be a leader yet. He is there absolutely 100% for Jonas Vingegaard. But as we see time and again in the Tour de France, it serves the teams really well to have that tactical card, have teammates that are close on time. And it'll definitely be motivation for Matteo to stay out of trouble over these first 10 days. And if anyone can do it, it's him. I mean, we're talking about an American who has won one-day spring classics in Belgium, you know, very well versed in the cobbles and the wind, can definitely take care of himself. You know, some of these climbers, you kind of have to put a couple big guys with him and say, you know, take care of our climber, get him through these couple tricky stages. Matteo Jorgensen, I have no worries. You know, they can say, Matteo, you know, you look after Jonas a little bit, look after yourself, and get there to the end, get to the mountains. So I think he's going to be just fine. But yeah, outside of, you know, some of the superstars of our superstars, so UAE, Visma Lease Bike teammates, I put João Almeida, you know, Matteo Jorgensen, Adam Yates. Those guys are going to be up there in the GC by virtue of supporting their leaders. And yeah, outside of our big four, Evenepoel, Primoz, Tadej, and Jonas, it's hard to call other outsiders who are going to be up there in the mix. You know, some many of the Tour de France usual suspects in terms of top 10, top 5 aspirations: Ben O'Connor, Carlos Rodriguez, Firminios flying the Ineos flag, Felix Gall, Enric Mas are all names that sort of come to mind. But I just don't see, you know, any of them having a realistic chance to cracking into the podium and infiltrating those big four, and especially our first two guys in Pogacar and Vingegaard.
No Sepp Kuss there, Brent.
Oh yeah, you know, I love Sepp, Phil, but Sepp, what I also love about Sepp is Sepp has been quite vocal and open to that. Hey, like, I won the Vuelta. I'm capable of this. That was amazing. But actually, that's not what makes me tick. You know, he didn't win the Vuelta and say, the Giro's next and then the Tour, I'm coming for you. Give me the leadership. Let me take the reins of this Visma Lease bike train. You know, Sepp's quite happy, I think, you know, doing his training camps at home, doing his incredible loop rides. I love this guy. You watch his Strava rides. He's not going up and down a climb. He's doing some big epic loop, just adventuring and exploring, soul riding. And I think that is even indicative of his style and his presence in the team. You know, Sepp will absolutely be, you know, all for one in Jonas Vingegaard, and would be very happy just to be there in the crux moments of the mountains and impactful in a Vingegaard win. I think that's the Sepp dream.
Well, actually, I agree with your comments there, but let's just talk about a man who's been named today as we speak into the Tour, and that's Bookwalter from Boise. First Tour de France. Can you imagine how he will feel tonight?
Oh, Phil, no doubt. I saw that news today of Will come out. Sent him a message, haven't heard back yet. I'm sure his phone's blowing up, as it does, being an American who gets selected for the Tour. And you know, that brought me back to the selection of my first Tour de France in 2010. I wasn't really expecting to be in the squad, but the way the season unfolded with my team, the BMC Racing team, they really needed me towards the end. And I had done the Giro already that year, and I thought, okay, yeah, I'll try the Tour. The Giro is my first Grand Tour, but let's do another one. 2 in 1 year, the first time. But I really underestimated the sort of like the meaning and the excitement from the American public when I was racing and got selected for that Tour. So I hope that Will is feeling this same love and excitement. I know the home country love is going to be just off the chain for him, and people will be even more tuned in and glued in. And I hope we'll see Will up there, you know, trying his chance in a breakaway or two. He'll definitely be playing a good teammate role, as he always does, to his leader, Enric Mas. But yeah, Will is a very savvy, also intelligent rider, in addition to being very talented physically, very strong on the climbs, amazing time trialist. And yeah, I think if he can get through that first week or so quite safe, I think we'll see him up there poking around for the breaks and giving us something to yell at the TV in the closing stages of a few races.
Well, as we're talking the Americans, Brent, Quinn Simmons as well, a real toughie, always possibly could win the stage. And Nielsen Powers as well, who can pull these big events off when he gets in the right position.
Yeah, Phil, absolutely. It's a good time to be a Tour de France fan in America. You know, we got Matteo Jorgensen, Sepp Kuss, you know, riding for one of the favorites of the Tour de France. They're going to be up at the front. We're going to see them on TV a lot. We just talked about Will Barta, but also Quinn Simmons, Nielsen Paulus. We've got a bunch of winners now. You know, it used to be back when I was racing the Tour de France, I was not winning World Tour races before going to support my leader at the Tour. You know, I was lucky to be like stabbing for a top 10 or a top 5, which kind of showed my condition and that I was mentally switched on. But Quinn Simmons, Nielsen Paulus, both of them picking up big wins back in June. Nielsen winning GP Gippingen in Switzerland, and then Quinn Simmons coming through with a stage win in Tour de Suisse, and so close to winning many of the stages. He was up the road. He had a Peloton phobia in Tour de Suisse. He just didn't want to ride with anyone. He was up the road in the breakaways every day and flying the American flag jersey, the stars and stripes, you know, flapping the eagle across the finish line. Yeah, not just good guys and good riders and teammates, but winners, you know, American winners riding in the Tour de France. And it's going to give us a lot to cheer about. I'm sure our producer is going to be telling me to not be too homeboy biased on the American riders. So I might get checked once or twice for that.
Now, on this occasion, you've got every right to be homeboard bicycles. All these Americans, 5 of them, it's a higher than usual number, and they've got the talent to do something. It won't be at the back of the peloton when we get the rear shots, that's for sure. Well, we've been talking so long, we're almost at the start in Lille, so let's have a look at the route. The race starts in Lille, which is a lovely town, city. In fact, my old commentator, as you well know, Paul Sherwin, he used to live in Lille for 10 years as he was a pro, and used to take me around the city. It's a beautiful city. We're going to get underway now. It's a real trick area. We stay in Lille for the whole day. We're out on a big circuit, about 180 kilometers off the top of my head. It can be a very testing course. In that area, you get cobble roads, as a matter of fact. Tricky corners, be it difficult. All the riders are predicting a bunch sprint, but you know, that doesn't always come true.
Absolutely, Phil. Yeah, if anything's expected in the Tour de France, it's that, yeah, there is no template, there is no norm. You can never bank and guarantee anything. And even just looking at that first stage on paper, imagining the peloton and the nerves, obviously the GC guys starting the Tour, their teams always queued up, you know, everything to potentially lose on a stage like this. But it's been a while since we saw a Tour de France route. It's been a few years at least where a true sprinter could claim the yellow jersey early in the race. And this is it. This is 2025. And we have a stage one that has a high likelihood of giving a world-class sprinter, a fast man, the chance to wear the yellow jersey. So when you stack up, you know, you literally have every team, whether it's a GC guy or a team with a sprinter, they're all fighting for every inch of that road. And this is Northwest France. Like you said, it's the cobbles, it's the road furniture. Oh gosh. I think the last tour I did in 2016, we started not quite as far up as north as they are this year, but again, still Northwest France, technical, windy roads. And I came to grief on the pavement in day one. That is no way to start the tour. But that is the stage one nerves of the tour. And we're already hearing it when we talk to the directors. We talked to Enrico Gasparotto today of Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe, and he's almost saying like, oh, it's almost over the line. It's almost a little too much. These guys, it's just going to be such a physical and mental wringing out right from the beginning. And they've got 10 days, Phil. You know, usually 9 days. That's a big stretch to start the tour. That's a stretch for us, even in the comfy studios and the commentary boxes doing 9. But this year it's 10. That is a big load.
I think you should ask for a pay rise for the extra day myself, Ben. But
I'll defer to your experience there.
We can't go through the whole route right now. It's 21 days. We have the usual 2 rest days. But interesting, very, very small amount of time trialing. There's a short one, 5 around, and that's just 11. So that's 33 meters. So we're 20 miles. Then we have a mountain time trial down the back end of the course to Périgueux, very short. I'm trying to look here to see if I can see the distance of the darn thing. 11 kilometers, 6.5 miles, but it's all uphill. Both of those distances could suit Evenepoel, or it could suit Primož Roglič as well. And that's where maybe he could press a little bit of an advantage.
Yeah, Phil, absolutely. These TTs of the tour this year, this is pretty low kilometers for time trialing at the tour. Relatively short, flatter one in the first week. The stage 13 uphill time trial to Périgueux. That is a brutal, filthy climb, make no mistake. And even though it is short, these uphill time trials often do produce some big time gaps. So, you know, we're talking stage 13 already in the Pyrenees. All the Alps still to come after that. So I think the TTs, absolutely, always the TTs are decisive in the Tour de France. If you go back to the last Tour de France that Jonas Vingegaard won, the time trial that we saw from him in the third week was, you know, nearly out of this world. I remember watching that one, seeing his teammate Wout van Aert come in, setting the best time, and then Vingegaard coming in and just obliterating the next best time, taking minutes and minutes and minutes. So I think especially an uphill time trial in the later portion of the race, it's not just about being on. You've obviously got to be on your A game, But if you have any weakness, if you've miscalculated that rest day, if you've miscalculated your fueling at all, you have a little bit of a bad day and you just explode and hemorrhage time. And I think when we go back to the beginning of our discussion today here about can anyone beat Tadej Pogacar? In that regard, I almost think, the only one that can beat him is the cliche of himself. It's like Jonas Vingegaard needs for Pogacar to have a little bit of a bad day, to be a little bit off, and just hope that it aligns with him and his team being miraculous. And the race route, it does well to set up for that, for sure. The way that the climbs are piled on, uphill team time trial, stage 13, and then all to play for in the Alps, the last few stages, and the big one, the Queen stage up to Courchevel over the Col de la Loze. That's one we're all going to be just super hyped for and waiting for.
Now, we've spoken to a lot of teams over the last 10 days without giving any secrets away. What they had in common was they're all afraid of the first 10 days of the Tour de France. They're afraid that the leaders might have problems, which means they won't go into the last week and the high mountains where this race will surely be decided, like the major climb of the Col de la Loze near Courchevel. It's a very tricky, basically up in the north and down the west side of France. We go to Dunkirk. I can tell you now that they are fully ready to receive the Tour de France. And of course, we'll see a lot of remembrance of the World War II and the battle on the beach. They've got American flag proudly on the beach already. The time trial is in. You said you were in the climb in Britannia. Did you?
Oh, Phil, you're breaking up again, but I think you were asking if you're throwing it back to the Britannia Grand Depart.
Well, I'm sorry about the net, Brett. I have no idea why. It's normally very good. Yes, I was. I was talking about Mur de Britannia when you were in the race with Cadel.
Yes, yeah, that is a good memory. Cadel Evans, 2011, won the stage up to Mur de Britannia, and they're back there again in the first week. And that is another stage that evokes these memories and this feeling of franticness and this stress. On that particular edition, as we were approaching Mur de Britannia in 2011, Cadel actually had a bike problem, needed to stop and get a bike change at the point where the peloton is just flying down the road. We thought, good luck even to get back to the front. We're just thinking at that point, don't lose time. But that was a really early but pivotal indication for, I think, for us and Cadel to make us all believe that, wow, he's not just good, but he is here to win. And that sort of is like the uphill finish feature of the Tour de France route this year. And that's an exciting finish because a lot of different types of riders can win. We're talking the GC guys and Pogacar, Vingegaard are going to be up there for sure. But Mathieu van der Poel also finding success on Mur de Britannia before, and other riders with that more punchy style. So just, goes to reinforce once again the open nature of this first week of racing, and that there's so much to gain, but also lose for everyone, from the sprinters to the punchers to the GC guys and the climbers. That I gotta save some for it, Phil. I'm already getting kind of edgy and wore out just from all the anticipation of this first 10 days.
Well, after the first 10 days, of course, we then begin our journey to the Pyrenees, across to the Alps, and then the 50th year of the finish celebrating on the Champs-Élysées with a different route. They did what they thought to the Olympic road race in Paris last year. So we're going to climb Montmartre. So I think the champagne drinking that we normally treated to in a very boring approach to Paris, that may not happen this year. Well, as my video seems to be acting up today, Brett, let me just say to you the obvious question now. Tell me your podium in Paris.
Oh, Phil, I know this is what we get paid for. They're always pushing us to make our predictions. I think
this is what you lose your job for.
Fortunately, we'll have this race-long stage competition of points to fight for some glory amongst us before then. But if I have to go flash forward to Paris right now and think about the podium, I'm going to say Tadej Pogacar, Jonas Vingegaard, and that third position is tough. I think if I'm gonna pick with my heart, I'm gonna say Primož Roglič. If I have to just pick with my mind, I'm gonna do Tadej Pogacar's teammate in João Almeida. How about you, Phil? What do you think?
Well, I'm going to go with the same top three as last year, unless first Remco and maybe Vingegaard, because Remco's determined to do better than last year. That means he's going to have to finish second. We're not too sure how Vingegaard is going, but deep down, I think he'll come out on top form. If I was Tadej, knowing the pressure carries, but never seems to show it, he could have a real battle on his hands this year. And there is room rather for surprise with Primož Roglič, Santiago also, and maybe Lipovic, the youngster they say isn't going to go for the overall because he's far too young and it's his first Tour de France. Yeah, I've heard all that before. All of a sudden, in fact, the last time I heard it, it was that young man, Tadej Pogacar, who finally knocked Primož Roglič out on the climb of the Belfield in the time trial before he finished in Paris. Brent, it's been great speaking to you. Like, you've got me really going now. I just want to get to Lille and get stuck in and speak to you online when we're live on Peacock, of course, every day of the Tour de France.
Thanks, Phil.
For all your cycling content year-round, subscribe to NBC Sports YouTube page. We got it all.